Hey everybody, I'm going to be talking about chases in Dead by Daylight, what the goal of a chase is, when you might want to break a chase, using your killer powers in chase, looping and faking in chase. We'll also be talking about this in terms of both the survivor role and the killer role, because we'll be seeing some clips of both. So, when it comes to chases, these are all things you have to consider. You also have to consider some other things about like where tiles are and what's around you, who's around you. We'll see some clips of each, but when it comes to chase goals, there can be multiple chase goals, and it kind of depends on who you're playing against, what their build is, what they're deciding to do. So a chase, the most obvious goal of a chase would be to get downs. You want to get injuries, you want to get downs. But there are other chase goals that people can have, depending on how they expect a chase to go and what they're actually getting out of it. So you can get rid of resources or you can gain resources. To get rid of resources is you kick pallets, you maybe get them to use items and stuff. Maybe you have something like, forgetting the name, but Franklin's Demise. Maybe your goal is to get them to drop items. Maybe you're gaining resources, maybe you're gaining play with your food stacks, maybe you're gaining stock. Stock's a huge one. You might see this with Ghostface or Myers players where they will stalk you during a chase and then they'll just leave. This is especially true if there are other survivors around or if you're an obsession. If you're an obsession, you'd be giving play with your food stacks, stuff like that. So you'd be giving them haste for purposely leaving chases. You can also see that this can be applying pressure through injuries, so you can have hit and run builds where the idea is to injure everybody. Certain killers function like this, like Legion. Legion is a big example of most of the chases of a Legion are probably going to be applying pressure through injury before getting downs, because that's how their power typically works. So this can be another goal of a chase. Not all chases necessarily end in downs. Many of them that will be the primary goal, but there are some exceptions. It can also be to interrupt survivor coordination. You can start a chase to purposely get people off a gen, or to purposely stop them from healing, or to stop them from unhooking, or to do whatever. This is typically seen when you see people camping. A lot of the times they'll start a chase, they'll get injuries around that hook, but they won't really leave the hook site, or the down site. So that is one of the ideas behind interrupting survivor coordination. You don't want them to get free unhooks. As a survivor, you need to be very, very careful about this situation. This could include basement situations, where maybe it's a basement trapper or something like that, and they've got a bunch of stuff set up down in basement, and they get a down basement, and they hook down there. They might take chases to get you injured, so that pulling them out is not a feasible option, right? So that's one of the biggest things when you've got certain killers who are kind of like hovering around hooks or downs, and they're sort of semi-taking chases, but not really, right? The goal of that chase isn't necessarily to down, it's to specifically put a huge amount of pressure on your team so that that could snowball into more downs. So there are, like, I guess, time-sensitive type goals. And we'll be looking at some clips and stuff of some of these ideas. This is Singularity. I want you to pay attention to who's being chased, how the injuries have been spread. Almost everybody in our team is injured. We have one person on gen. He's about to strike me with one of his biopods while chasing the Lara. So keep that in mind. That means he stopped for a couple seconds, did a biopod. So he's got 2 downs right now. He just struck everybody with biopods pretty much. This guy's applying a huge amount of pressure. He is handling chase, he's handling killer powers. This is a very, very good Singularity player, in my opinion, that I ended up getting matched with. And you can kind of see why, right? Like, he has 2 hooks now, both of them in basement, so he's been chasing in good areas for him. This is me. Something I want to quickly point out, because it's not very noticeable, is we're gonna take a quick couple. This is Claudette. Claudette is 1 hook. The one next to her is Meg. She's 2 hook. So when you're taking chases and you're talking about what is your goal of a chase, you also have to like, figure out kind of, you have to have this idea. You have to figure out which chases are the most important types of chases to be taking. So in this case, I decided to go after Meg. And you can see she's using resources. She's trying to keep me from doing it. I'm trying to use my power when I can, trying to hit her when I can. Here's our power back on her. If she gives me the opportunity, I will strike her with it, but she's doing decently well. That's Claudette coming in. Claudette showing herself. She's trying to take a hit, but she wasn't even on the right side where Meg was, and then she's showing herself again. I can tell she's there, and that's just led to me having 2 downs in this area. Very bad for their team. But yeah, so when it comes to taking chases, you have to be very, very careful. Who's taking a chase, how you're taking protection hits, where you're staying around. Very, very important. Now when it comes to breaking chases, there are a couple of things that can happen when somebody has a broken chase. It could be that this is a false break of chase, or a false chase. So either they're pretending to break chase, but they haven't, or they're doing a false chase, where they're breaking chase with someone purposefully, so they can sneak up on other people, maybe interrupt an objective. You see this a lot with stealth killers as well, where sometimes a ghost face might just drop out of chase, and you don't know where they went, or they might mark somebody, and somehow just, like, be somewhere else and pull somebody off a gen or whatever, right? So you can see stuff like that, where they're using certain elements of HUD, they're using certain elements of somebody having been in chase to give a certain type of impression to the players. That's very important. Another example of false chase is, like, mind games in a weird way. We'll get into that specifically, but the idea is that you're doing something unexpected in chase to try to interrupt the flow of the chase and catch them off guard. Similarly related to false chase can be when you pretend to, like, pick up a down, but you're not actually doing that. When you pretend to break a pallet, when you pretend to do these things, your idea is that you're doing something that is giving off a certain intention that you're not actually planning on doing in chase. So that can be you're falsely breaking off a chase, you're falsely breaking a pallet, you're falsely going to vault a window. We'll get into actual, like, mind games and looping and stuff later on, because that's kind of their own category. Another thing is if there's maybe not enough time to continue a chase, or maybe they've gotten you at a really, really good tile. I recently had an example of that with a Jason. We won't be seeing that specific clip, but it was on the FNAF map where there's a god pallet, and he just didn't want to deal with it, so he just left. That can happen too. Or maybe there's some other goal that they've achieved during that chase, and so they're totally fine with leaving you. Maybe you gave them a god pallet at 5 gens, and they're totally fine with breaking chase and going to find somebody else. You know, maybe they're like a Legion, and they got their 1 injury, and that's all they needed, and off they are to the next chase. So, some of the clips we're going to be seeing will show some of these scenarios. This is an example of what I would consider to be like a type of false chase, because I'm after this Felix. I purposely try to get her to drop this pallet. I was trying to fake breaking to see what we'd do. Me wondering where she went. So I'm faking picking up, looking around for her, found her. Got an injury. I'm faking again picking up, and I knew she'd show herself because she wants that flashlight save. So if you're a survivor, you have to be very, very careful when it comes to flashlight saves, and specifically displaying consistent behaviors. If you're displaying consistency, that's really bad for you. They might guess what's going on. This is an example of some breaking chases where I completed a chase on Jill and I'm immediately into the next chase. Just hit Leon, and I'm back to trying to hit some of these other people, because we've got like 3 people around this town. Ada is eventually going to come in, but you can see that I'm trying to juggle all these people. I'm also really, really bad at Chucky. This is like, I almost never play him, so I'm missing a lot of hits here. But they're all staying here. That's 2 downs. I decide we're going to go ahead and hook now that we have an extra down, because we've got 1 injured. The only other person who could come in for this heal would be Ada. If Leon stays, that's a really, really bad for him. See? And now I have 2 downs. That person just got on hook, so I know that Ada's in. zoning, mark and expose stalking, infection mechanics, dash, and haste. So these are things about killer powers and where they're taking you and why they might not be immediately hitting you or like seemingly keeping a distance in chase, stuff like that. This is going to be most important on things like Plague, on Myers, on Ghostface. These are going to be things you really want to watch out for. Zoning is something most and all killers would do if they know what they're doing, where they're going to push you into areas where there aren't resources. That's why getting rid of resources can be a goal, because once you have areas that don't have a lot of resources, it makes it harder for them to do stuff. This is me on Plague trying to use my killer power to push her to injury so I can get her down. So now she's at the injured state. Oh, I hit a wall. We're coming through that way. And we got the down. So, this is an example of using killer powers in chase to try to facilitate how a chase is running. And getting that down. We'll see some other examples and stuff. This is a Myers. Myers is going to be stalking. You might have heard him hit my gym there. And this is kind of an indication that his goal in this particular chase isn't an immediate down, because he didn't hit me and he should have been able to. And you can tell that he is keeping a decent distance there, so he's getting enough stalk, and now that he's got that exposed, oh, and we're gonna see a mind game, I believe, from him in a minute here, because I'm not checking enough. I didn't check back, so he didn't actually follow me into Hatch. He didn't follow me into Shack, he just went around the wall expecting me to vault, which I did. So that's an example of a mind game. We're going to be looking at some more mind games, faking vaults, breaking, power vaults, that kind of thing. So this is Jason, the new one, and here's a really good example of what you might consider a lunge or a mind game, where he's kind of trying to hide his red aura. He's using that lunge to get extra speed, and he hits me with a swing through the pallet. At least that's what I think is going on. It's possible maybe it's not a lunge, maybe it's a short swing, but he's just really, really good at hiding the aura. It kind of looks like he maybe had some speed there, so I'm guessing lunge, but... So you can see I'm trying to fake out the vaults. I'm trying to fake out the vaults, trying to mind game to not get hit by a spear. This is an example of a mind game where I wait to see which direction he's going, and I go the opposite way. I hear the build-up, so I move. Power vaults. So this is a power break. Yep. So you can try to like fake vaults. You can just fake them by like trying to run into them and seeing what they're doing. This is, once again, he did a build-up, and there we go. And this is the last example. This is, once again, trying to do something a little unexpected in chase, because this area is really hard to get out of when you're found. So I do a spin here, which he wasn't expecting, so he doesn't get the hit. And that actually allows me to make it back into the map. Otherwise, I probably would have downed, and it would have been really, really bad. So I push it further, I'm going to go grab the unhook here. But that's an example, right? So when it comes to stuff like that, like doing 360s and stuff like that, you want to do them in ways that are unpredictable or at a vault that you don't think you will make. So make it look like you're going to commit to it, but then veer away and try to like 360 into the vault instead. Because if it's a vault you can make, just make the vault. Just do it, be fine. 360s are kind of like a last resort, I think, in a lot of cases. So, as I was talking about with that, you know, obviously behavior is very, very important. If you are constantly doing 360s, they'll pick up on that, they might expect them more, so it might be harder to actually pull them off. But if you are not the player who typically does that, and you only do it when you're like, dang, I don't think I'm going to make this resource, that can help you, because they might not expect it, they might miss, they might not even swing at all, and you might be able to make that resource that you weren't going to before. So, you can see I go ahead and pull her off, And that's kind of where this clip ends, is me pulling her off. He doesn't actually end up coming after me. He tries to go after Kate after this. But yeah. So the basics of chase are essentially try to figure out what the person chasing you is trying to achieve. Are they trying to achieve an injured state? Are they trying to gain stalk? Are they trying to push you into a really bad area of the map? Are they trying to get you to use pallets that are really, really strong? Do they have a habit of greeting pallets? Does a survivor stand in a pallet and fake dropping and then run off? Does a survivor actually use a lot of pallets? Do they pre-drop? Do they pre-run? You have to kind of keep an idea of behaviors of chases to help you predict how and where a chase will take you. Because if you can do that, you can cut people off, you can mind game them more easily, you can do something unexpected so that maybe that chase ends a little bit sooner. Especially with the zoning aspect, how you kick a pallet, which side is very, very important, because if you're on one side and you kick a pallet, they have to run, obviously, backwards. So if you can run them into areas where they've already used resources, that's really, really good. So that's kind of some of, I guess, the basics of chases, and I've shown you a couple of examples. So I hope that helped. Bye!